Welcome to another Elder Scrolls lore video. Today I've decided to cover a subject that personally is one of my favourite bits of lore in the entire Elder Scrolls universe. And this is simply because I think it's such a cool little story and it's quite interesting. And this subject is the creation of Jorrvaskr, the home of the companions in Skyrim. The lore surrounding this great hall has been documented quite well in a variety of books in the Elder Scrolls games, so today I hope to tell you not only its origins, but what this great hall eventually led to. So to do this, I'm going to tell you the story of how this hall came to be and what happened after. This hall came about after the return of ysgramor and the 500 companions. To briefly explain what this was, a time before the event of the creation of Jorrvaskr, ysgramor, along with other Atmorans, which are basically an older form of a Nord, settled in Skyrim from Atmora. Eventually, one of their settlements, Sarthol, was attacked by the current inhabitants, the Snow Elves. This caused one of the surviving Atmorans, ysgramor, to return to Atmora and then come back to Skyrim with his 500 companions, and this was to wage war against the elves. Now, when the 500 companions returned with ysgramor, they retook Sarthol and drove the elves back to their cities. Ysgramor then stated to his 500 companions to go forth into the belly of this new land and drive the wretched from their palaces of idleness. And he does say a bit more, but that's the basics of it. He basically goes and tells them, go and kill all the elves and take over their cities. After hearing this, the captains that led smaller sections within the 500 gathered their crews and then used their longships to invade different areas of Skyrim. Some also travelled by foot. Anyway, back to how Jorrvaskr was formed. 22 of these 500 companions were the crew of the longship Jorrvaskr. These were 22 of ysgramor's closest friends, and their leader was known as Yeek of River, or as he was also known in his youth, the Harbinger. When building his longship Jorrvaskr, he acquired the help of Menro, a great warrior and craftsman, and Manwë, a great craftsman. They bore the Atmoran timbers across to their new home of Tamriel. Anyway, the crew of Jorrvaskr travelled southwards, their numbers never faltering, despite the various battles they had with the elves. One of Jorrvaskr's crew had gone on ahead one day, and as the sun set, Yonder the Tiny came back over the hill and told the rest of the crew what he had seen. He had discovered a vast plain, and in this vast plain, he had seen a monument of a giant bird. The crew followed him over the hill and were also shown its glory. Strangely, they could see no elven settlement near it. A member of Jorrvaskr's crew was confused as the land around them seemed great for farming. So, they asked some of their elven captives if they knew why no elves had settled the land. Most of the elves could say nothing of the valley except that they were fearful of the great monument. The warriors also learned that this monument was older than the elves themselves. It was known that this winged colossus possessed magic as old as Nirn itself. It is even possible that it is a remnant of the gods' efforts to make the Plain of Mundus a paradise. This was before the intervention of Lorcan. The crew of Jorrvaskr, however, were not afeard of the stories or the elven gods, and in fact, if this monument was something the elves feared, that gave them even more reason to have it for their own. This began the labours of Menro and Manwë, who used the Atmoran wood that had transported the crew across the sea to create their shelter. Effectively, they took apart their longship Jorrvaskr to create the halls of Jorrvaskr, and they did this next to this monument. The crew then revelled in these halls until the end of their days. From there, a city was founded around these halls, and due to the great white river that circled it, it became known as Whiterun. And just as a side note, the monument eventually became the Skyforge, which forged all of the signature companion Skyforge steel weapons. Also, below the Skyforge is a hidden area known as the Underforge. Not much is really known of the Underforge's origins, but we know it's the place where the modern day companions take initiates that join the inner circle to become werewolves. I imagine that most of you watching will know of what happened in Jorrvaskr after its crew founded it. It eventually became home to the companions, which uphold the values of ysgramor's 500 companions to this very day. However, unlike the original companions, these companions made a deal with the Glenmoral witches to become werewolves, but that is a story for another day. I'm just going to quickly talk about the structure of Jorrvaskr as a structure, because if you look at it, if you look at the top of it, it does actually look like an overturned ship, which some of you may not have noticed before. It is pretty much just an overturned longship. And on top of that, within the Jorrvaskr interior, you can see that the upper floor contains a large table where the companions can revel. There's also a separate bedroom, which currently belongs to Vignar Greymane, at least depending on what you choose to do in the game Skyrim, and also Brill sleeps there as well. But other than that, there's just a lot of drinking, eating, and I suppose they display their weapons around, along with the fragments of Wuthrad, which was the axe that belonged to ysgramor. There is also the Jorrvaskr living quarters, which are downstairs. The main members of the companions have their own rooms, but the general just sort of companions as a group have their own living quarters where they all share it. You know, for example, Kodlak has his own quarters, as does, say, Vilkas. I mean, you get a full sense of who the companions are when you first visit the halls of Jorrvaskr in Skyrim, because as you enter, there is a fight between Najada's Stonearm and Aethys, and the rest of the companions are by the sidelines cheering, and anyone that joins the companions is referred to as a shield brother or shield sister, as they're all meant to defend each other. I will make a full video on the companions in future, but for now I'm just sort of talking about the basics of Jorrvaskr. I'll probably make a full video on the Skyforge in the future as well, as that is actually a really interesting thing as well. I briefly touched upon it in this video. And one final point to mention is that this building is located in the Wind District of Whiterun, which is kind of in the northeastern end of the city. And also, it is technically a mead hall. One bit of information that I feel like you guys might actually find quite interesting is the origins of Jorrvaskr's name. Because obviously, in the Elder Scrolls universe, it comes from a ship, but it does actually have a real-world translation. Because the name Jorrvaskr roughly comes from the Old Norse phrase, swords and bravery. So I think this is quite an interesting little point anyway. Anyway guys, I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. This has been a good one to make. I said at the start that I always like this little bit of lore. Honestly, anything to do with sort of Norse roots or Viking-y type things, I always think is really fun, as I don't know, I really like that area of history. I think it's so interesting and kind of cool. Obviously, the Vikings weren't necessarily the nicest people in the world, but they did accomplish a lot considering where they came from. And I like the idea that they come from this kind of barren land and then they inhabit this new area where they can finally farm and do stuff. You know, it's the same with the real world. It's the parallels between the real world and Atmora. But yeah, if you've enjoyed today's video and want to see more Elder Scrolls lore videos, or just want to support the channel and help me out, I'd really appreciate you liking today's video, as it honestly just helps out the channel and it's just a kind thing to do. So thank you to every single one of you that does that. That's just really kind of you. I just want to say thank you all so much. If this is the first video you're finding on my channel, be sure to subscribe. There won't be an Elder Scrolls lore video next week. I mean, I'm sort of holding my hands up and saying potentially, because it will probably be a Middle-earth video, but then there will be one the week after that, and there'll obviously be Witcher lore every week as normal, and also Witcher parts. I'm considering doing a new game playthrough at some point. Not sure, I'm going to consider it, maybe even get back to Red Dead. My current goal with Red Dead is I'm going to finish it in my spare time, and then actually keep the save I had on the playthrough, and then maybe go from there, as I feel like if I know where the end of the game is, then I know how to streamline the playthrough a bit better. And also, that game is very, very long. Be sure to comment your suggestions, as honestly I do read all the comments. I look through them every few days. I'll just sort of go through them all, read them, see what people are saying, see what people like, what they don't like, what they think should be done and all the rest, and I'll take it into consideration, and if I agree with it, then I'll do something about it. Honestly, I really do appreciate all the comments. They're especially helpful on the playthrough, and sometimes I might miss something, I'm like, oh wait, go back and do that, and then I suppose it's better for you guys to see everything. So if you have any suggestions for Elder Scrolls lore videos or any other lore, be sure to put it down below. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter. I do updates on there. It's pretty much just a Twitter. I put pictures on there sometimes. I put the videos on there whenever they come out, and anything else. And if you just want to support me, I'd appreciate you following me on there. There is a link in the description, along with everything else I say in this outro. Be sure to follow me on Twitch. I'm going to stream some more on there, I'm sure, at some point. So if you don't want to miss the streams, be sure to follow me on there. I don't really stream that much, so I won't be spamming your phone or whatever else you use it on. So I'd appreciate you following me on there. Also, be sure to join the Discord and Reddit. Reddit's just pretty much you can post whatever you want. I'll usually have a look at it, see what's going on there. Discord, we have discussions, RP, pictures, all the rest, music recommendations. So if you want to join that, that's also in the description. We have over 600 members on there now, so there's quite a lot of people. There's discussions going on every day. So if you want to join in with that, talk about stuff you like, feel free. Finally guys, as always, a big thank you to the Patreon pledges. You guys are honestly so amazing, you help out the channel so much, and I just want to say thank you to every single one of you. And one thing I just want to say as well, as I'm sorry that these outros are so long, it's just that I like to get all this across to you guys, and I don't really have the opportunity otherwise. I could just say, you know, like follow me on Twitch, Twitter, subscribe, like, and all the rest, but then it feels as if I'm not really putting thought into it, and I'm not talking to you guys, and honestly a big part of my videos is being able to chat to you guys and sort of make a bit of my personality come across as opposed to me just saying information. And these outros are kind of a way for me to do that, but I know if you're watching them one after another it must be kind of annoying, so I'm really sorry about that. You're just gonna have to skip through it if you don't find that interesting. But I want to say thank you to every single one of you that listens to these, and also of course thank you to every single one of you that watches. Anyway guys, I hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have an awesome rest of the week.